Welcome to the Spring Boulder Green Forum. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Michael Davies. I'm the founder and director of this event, the Denver Green Forum. This is the second ever event that we've done. The first one was January 26th right here at Enterprise Coworking. Before we begin, oh, and by the way, I'm going to be tonight's moderator, so I'll be asking the questions for the panelists. Before I begin though, I'd like to thank the sponsors of tonight's event. Our title sponsors include Davies Media Design, the marketing company for sustainable businesses right here in Denver. We're over at, it's my company by the way, we're over at Green Spaces. Enterprise Coworking, that's this co-working space, shared space in Denver's Rhino neighborhood that empowers members to achieve their goals. Enterprise has a collaborative environment designed to support one-man shops, 100-person companies, and everything in between. They're local. They feature Eat Coffee in the upstairs restaurant there, coffee brew to fuel your morning brainstorm sessions, rooftop patios on the rooftop here to bring fresh air and fresh thinking to your work, and flexible private suites designed to expand and adjust as quickly as your business does. So check them out, enterprisecoworking.com. Our sustainability sponsors tonight, Book Bar, that is an independent bookstore and wine bar in Denver's Berkeley neighborhood. Book Bar specializes in a curated book inventory for all ages and are proud to serve house-made hors d'oeuvres with local ingredients, Colorado beers, local tea and coffee, and an eclectic wine list. Definitely check them out. And Chinook Book, by the way, hopefully you guys all got a Chinook Book app subscription when you came in. It's a sustainable coupon app, and usually it's $15 for the year, but for tonight they are giving everybody a free year of Chinook Book. Did everybody get one, by the way, when they came in? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Cool. So, yeah, let's hear it for the sustainability sponsors. It's a little quiet in here. Also, we had some awesome food from L5. I hope everybody got a chance to have some. So L5 is the newest restaurant from Edible Beats. They also do Ophelia's and Linger, and they're known for their cuisine being locally sourced, usually organic. This restaurant's brand new. They opened on May 3rd in the Low-High area, and they call it Middle Eastern Mediterranean Tapas. And so definitely check them out, L5. So let's give it up for L5. Cool, so tonight I'm going to give each panelist an opportunity to talk about the work they do and how they got into their respective fields. I will then ask them a series of questions related to the following categories: conservation and resource management, waste, and community. And after 45 minutes, I'm going to open the panel up to a Q&A session, so feel free to take notes on your phones. Go ahead and silence them though. Silence your phones now if you haven't already. But definitely take notes on your phone, or if you have a pen and paper, feel free to do that as well. And yeah, so I'm going to call on audience members to ask some questions. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and introduce each panelist. So we got the panelists in the back here. So we have some awesome panelists for tonight. I don't know if you guys have been reading my million Facebook posts trying to describe how great this event's going to be, but we do have an awesome panelist. So our first panelist, he's a veteran in terms of, this is his second Denver Green Forum. Pete Maysmith, Executive Director of Conservation Colorado and two-time panelist of the Denver Green Forum. Come on up, Pete. Okay, so our next panelist, everybody please welcome Dr. Sarada Krishnan, Director of Horticulture and the Center for Global Initiatives at the Denver Botanic Gardens. And our third panelist is Lindsay Arell, Sustainable Programs Manager for the Colorado Convention Center and Red Rocks, and she's also the founder of her company, Honeycomb Strategies. Lindsay Arell. High fives last time, so. Yeah. And last but not least, our final panelist is Andrea Sanders, Director and founder of B0. Awesome. So last time I gave a little speech. This time I'm just going to dive right into it. Too much to say, I guess, about what's going on right now. But Pete, since you're a veteran Boulder Green Forum panelist, I'll start with you. How did you get involved with conservation, and how did Conservation Colorado come to be?
Well, thanks for having me back, Mike. I certainly appreciate it. It's great to see everybody. I guess how I got involved with this, and the reason that I do this work, I grew up here in Colorado and grew up in a very political household. One of the first things that I really remember in terms of organizing and political activism is when I was in maybe the 5th grade. My mom, woke me and my younger sister up pre-dawn. I had no idea what was going on, and drove us out to Rocky Flats. You guys know Rocky Flats, right? Now it's a very different place. Back then it manufactured plutonium triggers, little bombs that would then set off a chain reaction to, a nuclear chain reaction as part of the weaponry of the Cold War. My mom was a big believer in activist in the peace movement. And the point of all that is I didn't know what that meant when I was 12 years old, obviously. But I did know that it mattered to my mom, and that if she thought something was wrong and needed to change, and that the way we address that is to do something about it. In that case, it was a protest. There's obviously dozens, hundreds, thousands of ways to get engaged, but that's the lesson that it taught me. So that really launched me into doing this work, and because Colorado's Colorado, and our beautiful air and sky, and our waters, and our mountains, and I just grew up loving all of that. And so working on conservation and environmental issues is just came very naturally to me. And at Conservation Colorado, we have a fantastic staff of 37 folks who work on air, land, water, and protecting our communities. One of them is here tonight. Bo is in the back, and so you may have already met Bo. And if you haven't, you should chat with him afterwards. But our theory is that as we build political power, we will use that power to protect our public lands and protect our waters and address climate change. And we'll talk about all those things later, so I'll kind of leave it at that, but that's who Conservation Colorado is.
Yeah, and I have a follow-up question for you, but I'm going to leave it until later, just because I know that there's a lot going on right now. So, Dr. Krishnan, how did you become the Director of Horticulture in the Center for Global Initiatives at the Denver Botanic Gardens?
Well, good evening. Thanks for having me here today. And I have been, since a child, I grew up in an agricultural family in India. And my family owned a coffee plantation and paddy and coconut fields. And I did my undergraduate degree in horticulture in India, which was mainly tropical horticulture. And I came to the US to do my master's about 30 years ago. I've lived in Colorado for 31 years now. And went to Colorado State University, and I wanted to specialize in plant tissue culture. And coming from a tropical background, I came here and studied tissue culture and propagation of Colorado native plants. Very different. And then I worked in the industry for a couple of years, and I used to commute from Westminster to CSU. And back in the 80s, we didn't have the internet at the time, and we all had to sit in the library and do the hard work. And I would have done my PhD at the time, but at that time, I didn't want to commute for another 5 years. So I decided to work, have my kids, and 5 years when I had my kids, I didn't work for a while. And that's when I was decided. When I was in Colorado, I kept thinking, there is no horticulture in Colorado. What am I going to do with my horticulture degree in Colorado? And that's when I decided I have to go and learn Colorado horticulture. And when I was 5 years, when I didn't work, I enrolled as a volunteer with the Master Gardener with the Colorado State University Extension. So that gave me a lot of knowledge about Colorado horticulture. And then when my kids were little, and then I worked in the industry for a while, and then I worked for 6 years as Director of Horticulture at the Butterfly Pavilion before I went to the Botanic Garden. And so I think it has been little stepping stones from your education to a commercial horticulture degree, a commercial horticulture job, and then a public horticulture, which has led me to where I am today. And also my passion has been international horticulture and international development. And so I was already doing some international work. And so my CEO, Brian Wood, asked me, hey, why don't you start an international program for the gardens? That's how in 2012 we formed the Center for Global Initiatives. And so that's how we do all our global programs.
Could you talk about also some of the work you've been doing with coffee and kind of where that stands right now?
Sure, and following my, after I started working at the Butterfly Pavilion, I decided I wanted to do my PhD too. So when I did my PhD work, I worked on coffee, looking at coffee genetic resources, working in Madagascar. So we know only 2 cultivated coffee, Arabica and Robusta, but there are 125 species of coffea. So as genetic resources, you always want to conserve, even though they are crop wild relatives, you want to conserve all of that. So last year we partnered with the Global Crop Diversity Trust. I don't know if any of you know Global Crop Trust. They have that seed vault up in Svalbard in Norway. They have this United Nations mandate to conserve genetic resources of all crops. And so they were developing the conservation strategy in partnership with World Coffee Research. They asked me if I would serve as the coffee scientist leading that project. And so last year we worked on developing, and the coffee strategy will be published within the next month or so. And that, we did a survey of all the gene banks of coffee, and one of the biggest things is we found out that these genetic resources are not very well protected because a lot of them are in countries that do not have financial resources, and there is a lot of politics. Coffee is very political. And nobody wants to share their resources. There are different countries that have different resources and nobody's sharing. Nobody knows what it is. So that's where the strategy will be very helpful in moving, because if we have to adapt to the climate change, and coffee will be one of those crops that will be impacted by global climate change. And so we have to have a mentality of sharing these genetic resources. So that's what the strategy will be addressing.
Yeah, I think the shared economy is definitely what a lot of sustainability is about, and it's also, you know, the only way that we can really survive as a species on this planet. So Lindsay, I'm going to throw it over to you. How did you go from being a political science major at the University of Colorado to owning your own sustainability hospitality company?
Wow, that's a big jump, huh? There's a lot in between there too. I actually started out in the events industry and really traveled around a little bit doing some of that work. And back in 2007, I was looking to move back to Colorado, and the Colorado Convention Center, where I'd been an event manager, and it was also a really big time in Denver because we had the Democratic National Convention coming here. And so it was kind of doing some soul searching. I knew I didn't necessarily want to do events, and I knew I wanted to do something, I thought, with a nonprofit. And so I went to the general manager and said, what if the Colorado Convention Center, and proposed the idea of being the sustainable programs manager, and really help with the Democratic National Convention being sustainable. And he basically was like, well, what will you do? I was like, I don't know, but I will figure it out. And we had history, so I was like, all right. And so it was a good job interview. And so I got really lucky though. I entered when Denver was just like really willing to collaborate, and all of these different organizations were coming together to really put together a great convention. And so I was really fortunate to that collaboration, I think, was super right. And so I got to work on developing the bike share and locations for that. I was on the transportation committee, and working with Denver Water to get Xeriscape, and it was just a really cool time. And so that kind of led. I was also the only sustainable programs manager for a convention center. So I started traveling around, working with other venues and around the country, and then just kind of blossomed. So now I manage a program for all arts and venues. So I work with Red Rocks, Deepak, the Coliseum, but I also work with events, like conferences. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Sustainable Brands. I just got back from Detroit, working with their conferences, and then even the Philadelphia Eagles. So it really spans a pretty big scope, but kind of coming down to hospitality in events and venues. There's a lot of commonalities there that I think are very unique to other businesses.
And the Denver Post, and this is just a quick comment, wrote an article, I think it was the Denver Post, about how you created your own job.
Yeah, that's an older.
Yeah, it might be a little older on
I
our
was
side.
straight out of high school.
I did a little digging on the research there, but Any Philadelphia Eagles fans in the house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Surprising.
They're amazing.
Oh,
City of my birth, Mike. City of my birth.
okay.
Eagles go green.
So, Andrea, I'm going to flip it over to you. You have been involved with environmental conservation for 20 years. Talk about your work in conservation and sustainability over the years and how it led you to start your own nonprofit.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me. So I grew up in Florida. I wasn't born there.
Same here.
I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and since I was like 14 years old, I started volunteering at our local marine research center. It's called Marine Laboratory and Aquarium, and I kind of started right out of the gate. That was kind of, I spent my high school years volunteering, and so educating with the public about our local marine environment in Florida. I was on the marine mammal care team. I took care of sick and injured marine whales and dolphins. When I was 18 years old, I worked with them, and I taught a lot of the education programs that the aquarium offered to the public. And then I continued doing that up and through high school, and then moved out and lived in Central Florida, where I worked at the Central Florida Zoological Park, and I was education director, or education teacher there, and I did that for 5 years. So I spent a lot of time working with the public about the environment, teaching people about the environment, about conservation and whatnot. And something I had some aha moment where I stumbled across this blog called The Zero Waste Home, and this was back in 2007. And I kind of realized that if you're not familiar, The Zero Waste Home is a blog run by a woman named Bea Johnson, and she still runs it. It's pretty awesome. Check it out. She basically founded the Zero Waste Lifestyle movement, and she had her blog that she started, and all of the trash that she produced, her family, she had 2 little boys at the time and her husband, fit in a mason jar, their landfill waste for the year, and I was like, wow, like here I am, I'm thinking I'm this awesome environmentalist, I'm teaching the public about saving whales and leopards, but when I went home, I didn't really do anything else. Like my trash can was full, I ate what I want, I bought what I want, I didn't have any kind of sense of how those actions really made a difference or they were connected at all. So stumbling across her blog made me start to think about how I could teach conservation to people in a different way. So I kind of retired from working at the zoo and started teaching meditation and yoga for 10 years. And my focus was just the idea behind that transition was trying to build relationships with ourselves. Yoga, if you know anything about yoga or meditation, it's kind of developing relationships with our mind and our body, and also with the world around us. So I figured if I can learn that, and maybe I can incorporate that into conservation, because there's a disconnection, right, between us and the environment. And so that kind of led to B0, which I do now. I started the zero waste, kind of doing this low waste stuff back then when I found her blog, and continued that quietly on my own. And then about 3 years ago, I created a blog called B0, and I was documenting how I was reducing my waste and how I was trying to be more mindful of my footprint in the world. And and from there I created B0, our 501c3 nonprofit. We've been that for 1 year now. We're grassroots, all women run, and we basically teach people how to drastically reduce their trash and plastic footprint and to become more what I call material mindful and to live a circular mindset.
Awesome. And you're also an Instagram star with your 38,000 followers.
40 now.
40 now?
Crossed 40 today.
Yeah, let's keep it up. 40,000. Dr. Krishnan, I'm going to come back to you. And so these are the categories now, and this is conservation and resource management. Dr. Krishnan, what are the main conservation factors that go into selecting plants and designing the horticulture displays at the Denver Botanic Gardens?
Okay, I think the key thing is right plant in the right place. And a lot of times when people do gardening, they tend to put wrong plants in the wrong places. And usually, I mean, we advertise their escape, but how many people really, they think they're planting a plant that requires very low water, but the irrigation system covers the lawn and the plants all at the same time, and they're putting excessive water onto their plants. So that's what we look at is, a botanic garden, we are a living museum. So like a museum, every individual plant is a museum collection. So we document, every single plant gets a record number and it's documented. So just like a museum piece, every plant is a museum piece for us. And so ours, we are very collections focused, and we have 7 major living collections. And some of it is aquatic plants and so our biggest focus is on steppe plants. We are in the shortgrass prairie region, which is one of the steppe regions of the world. So we look for plants around the world that are suitable for our locations, the high altitude, semi-arid regions. And we have done plant exploration in South Africa, Central Asia, and the Patagonia, and bring back plants and we do testing. So one of the things is, as an environmental way, we need to be very conscious that we are not introducing the next invasive weed into the wild.
Could you real quick, just what's a step?
This step, we bring the plants back, we test them, and we make sure if they are very good they're adapted to Colorado, then we promote them to a plant introduction program called Plant Select. I have some brochures out there about Plant Select. And so they've all been tested through Colorado State University and Denver Botanic Gardens, and we introduce them or recommend them as plants for a semi-arid region that you can use in your garden as low water plants. And I think so when you are doing your own gardening, it's like zoning your plants in such a way, all the same plants that require the same amount of water are zoned together, so that way you're not wasting water unnecessarily on these plants.
And sorry, I just meant what's a steppe region? You said...
Oh, steppe region,
yeah,
okay. I was the steps involved.
I Googled it when I was researching some of the stuff you do, but I don't think that's a common term.
Steppe is the high altitude temperate grasslands. So it's STEPPE, steppe. Steppe ecosystem is one of the biomes of the world. And so you have the Eurasian steppe, all of like Mongolia and the grasslands across Eurasia, and then the shortgrass prairie and the tall grass and the intermountain steppe. And then we have in Patagonia, the steppe region in Patagonia, and in South Africa in the Drakensberg Karoo region, there is high altitude grasslands also.
And so, I'll give you one follow-up question. As Colorado's population continues to increase, what are some of the major challenges facing Colorado's biodiversity right now, and what's the Denver Botanic Gardens doing to protect the biodiversity?
Our research team does, the first question is, biodiversity loss. We have a lot of people that move from all other regions of the United States and come here. And they don't really know how to garden in the steppe region. And so we have introduced a lot of plants. If it was left to what it was, we wouldn't have all these trees. But we have become an urban environment now, and so planting trees, it's not the original steppe region anymore because the trees wouldn't have existed here. And we have introduced all these trees, and so the thing is looking at plants that also attract, so we are already introducing plants to the landscape. And so the thing is we also want to conserve all those native areas around our region. And so when we introduce plants, looking at their value as ecosystem services, are they attracting pollinators? Are they providing pollinator services? And so that way, not only are you conserving the plants, but also all the critters that depend on these plants.
Obviously, a lot more goes into how you guys arrange your plants at the gardens than I ever thought of when I first went there, for sure. Pete, I'm going to throw it over to you. And I had a different first question, but I think we're all aware of kind of what went down today. And I wrote this question yesterday. This is how quickly news changes around here now. I put the U.S. is likely to back out, but now it is the U.S. has backed out of the Paris Climate Agreement. What will this mean for the environment and conservation in Colorado going forward?
Certainly a timely question, and maybe I'll start by saying I have a beer in my hand, which is breaking a rule. I speak at a lot of events and a lot of venues and a lot of panels, and I don't have a drink before just because, right? I don't know, I just don't. And I figured if the United States can join Syria and Nicaragua as being the only other countries on this planet that aren't a part of the Paris Agreement, I can sit here and have a beer while I speak with you all. So I hope that meets your approval. And if not, I'll put it down, I'm sorry.
There's no more rules anymore.
All right, there are no more rules, and we could talk for hours about that, but I won't do that to you. Let's confine ourselves, at least for the moment, to Paris and what that means. So let me be clear, and I don't mean this with hyperbole. I believe this to be true. I think what happened today will go down in history as one of the greatest blunders by an American president ever. It's that bad, it's that stupid, it's that serious. It really is. When the global community can come together that doesn't really agree on anything, in case we haven't noticed that, and can say that this threat, climate change, is such an existential threat to our very existence, the kids that we have brought into this world or may in the future bring into this world and their children, etc., that we can agree that we need to limit pollution to a certain level to try to stop the rise of the temperatures to 2 degrees C and really to 1.5 degrees C, which probably would be tolerable. When the global community can come together and do that, and then based on no science, no rational economic theory, no rational political theory, the US, the leader in so many ways in the globe that I don't need to explain to anyone sitting here, can decide unilaterally to pull out, that's a bad day. I'm a really optimistic guy. Bo will vouch for me on that. But let's not pretend that what happened this afternoon is okay. If you care about climate change, I'm pretty sure if you're sitting here, you care about climate change. It wasn't a good day. But I think there's a place to go from here, and I think there's a place of hope, and that's where I'm personally going to go. That's where Conservation Colorado, the organization I run, is going to go, the environmental community, and I hope all of us are going to head there. And that as of today, at 1 o'clock Mountain Time, the leaders in climate change became the cities and the states and the private sector here in the United States. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so what we're going to do is take all the good work that Colorado has done, and I could go on, and I won't do that to poor Mike or the rest of my panelists, about Colorado, how Colorado has led in the clean energy and climate space in the last 13 or 14 years. Renewable energy standards, shutting down coal-fired power plants, doing energy efficiency standards, and it goes on and on from there, right? All that has been good up until now, and it is not sufficient. And we have to double down as a state, and then as cities. Denver and many other cities have to do far more. And I think that's going to be all of our collective jobs, is to demand more from our elected leaders, more than we had been demanding of them previously. And I won't now, I'll stop, but I can talk about what I think that could look like, what the actual policies are, et cetera, but that's the kind of big picture view from, not a proud day in the history of the United States, in my opinion.
Just quickly, before the Paris disaster thing happened today, what were some of the major wins for conservation in Colorado in 2017, just real quick?
Yeah.
What our organization helped with.
Sure, I mean, I'd hit on two, because here's the thing to hold on to, right? Is that the people are so with us, right? The people are with us when it comes to climate change, when it comes to sustainability, all the fabulous work that you've already heard about, and you're going to hear a lot more about in the next half hour, 45 minutes, that the folks up here do. The public is so with us. And so when we can translate that support into political activism and then actual policy, that's when we win. So to be specific, I'll just pick on two, and there's a lot more than that. One, we passed a bill this session through the Colorado legislature which has divided control of the chamber. So the Democrats control one chamber and the Republicans control the other chamber. And so as you might imagine, passing legislation through that is not a particularly simple matter, for I think probably self-evident reasons, right? But a piece of energy efficiency legislation that really incentivizes and demands that the dominant utility, which is Xcel Energy, has to cut the amount of energy that they sell. Think about it. You're in the business of selling widgets. In this case, the widget they sell is energy. What they want to do is sell more of that, because that's how they make money, right? And so this bends that incentive the other direction to actually sell less energy. So that's an important policy. That's one. The second thing I'll highlight, and then I'll stop, is it's actually what we did a year ago, but then it got actualized this year, and I think that's really cool to see. And it's on a different topic. It's on public lands. I mean, who doesn't love to go camping, or hiking, or biking, or skiing, or rafting, or picnicking, or hunting, or I don't know what you like to do, but I'm pretty sure you like to get outside at some point and do things in our great public lands in Colorado. So a year ago, we passed a bill that didn't really mean anything. It said we're going to celebrate Public Lands Day on the third Saturday in May every year. There's nothing to that. There's not like an official holiday. I mean, no one gets a day off from work. It's just saying we're going to celebrate our public lands. Well, you know what we did this year? We had 137 events around the state where thousands, tens of thousands of people in all different venues, some to drink beer, some to do hikes, some to do trail restoration, some to listen to concerts, and it goes on, came together to say we're coming together to celebrate public lands and what they mean to our soul, to our hearts, to our psyche as Coloradans. Oh, by the way, what it means to our economy as well. And so I think that was a victory. That was just 10 days or so ago to see that happen after the work last legislative session, like I said, to actualize it. That felt really good, and I think it really matters. So I'll stop there.
That's awesome. And I know you can talk all day about this stuff. Lindsay, what are some of the environmental certifications you help your clients obtain, and what's the process like for some of those larger venues like Colorado Convention Center and Red Rocks?
Yeah, so, I think certifications get kind of a dry rap, which, I get it. But I will say, I do think that they provide some pretty good structure and kind of motivation and kind of the ability to,
Drive?
Yeah, drive, and it's a good excuse a lot of times. So the Colorado Convention Center is LEED, it's LEED certified for existing building, gold level. We received our first LEED certification in 2010, got recertified in 2015. We're also, as a city venue, I don't know does everyone know that the city of Denver is ISO 14001 certified? So we're like the second city, there may be more, but basically we have an environmental management system in place for the city of Denver. So that means each year we all the different agencies have to set our goals of, here's what we're trying to do, here's how we're going to track it, and we actually have an entire department within environmental health that's devoted to that. So, it may sound like, well, what does that really mean? But for me, it's a way, I'm the sustainability manager, and so I don't have a full department. It's really just me. And if any of you guys have ever worked in the field of sustainability, sometimes I've been called, the recycling police. I have things left on my desk, there's, just that I'm crying about sustainability all the time. So, you really have to find some really good ways to get in there and really motivate people. And
so do you typically try to get them to, is it use less energy? Do they have to hit certain energy marks, like they have to use a certain percentage less energy to become LEED certified? Do they have to use a certain percentage less waste? What kind of stuff do they have to do?
So LEED is very, it's credit based, so you have benchmarks and different things you have to meet. ISO is goal based, so it's continual improvement. So they actually work really well together. So for the Colorado Convention Center, we have to demonstrate certain energy efficiencies and waste reductions or diversions. But we also get to make our goals. But for example, with ISO, one of my goals is to educate and to increase, engagement of attendees to Red Rocks and international attendees from around the world, basically, that come to the Colorado Convention Center. So it's a less tangible goal, but I feel like it's one that's really important for kind of what we're able to do.
Okay, so Andrea, talk about, this is a pretty broad topic, but briefly talk about our throwaway culture and why we should be moving towards, and by the way, we're on the waste subject here, why you think we should be moving towards a circular economy?
Yeah, so how many people threw away something today? So the average person throws away 4.5 pounds of trash per day. That's Americans alone. Our throwaway culture,
The mic's a little testy, so just hold it a little bit further away,
our throwaway culture really started in the mid-50s. So prior to that, like our grandparents, great-grandparents, they didn't really throw away the kind of stuff that we're throwing away right now. Most of what you're probably throwing away is plastics, right? Single-use plastics that aren't really recyclable, whatnot. So our throwaway culture kind of started back in the mid-1950s with this kind of onset of convenient stuff, especially the onset of plastics. It was kind of seen as this really futuristic material. You can like knock a bowl off the counter and it doesn't shatter. You can give your kids a little Dixie cup and they can just drink it and throw it away. It was kind of revolutionary. In the class that I teach, there's an article from Life magazine in 1955, and it says, "Throwaway living, disposable lifestyle is here." And it's this family of 3 throwing all this trash in the air. This was an actual article in a magazine in 1955. So we've kind of been trained into this idea that this stuff is convenient and it makes our life simpler and easier. And for a lot of ways it does, right? But moving forward now, we've seen that we are producing more than our Earth can handle. A lot of this stuff we kind of push away, like, oh, I recycle, right? Recycling is really nice, but we produce so much globally that recycling is not really making a dent. And most of the stuff you put into your recycling bin ends up going to the landfill if it can't be sold. So this throwaway culture is kind of just ingrained, but it's not something that we're based on, especially, as Americans, we're based in resourcefulness, thriftiness, community, ownership, taking ownership of our things. And so moving forward, kind of, what was the other half of that question?
Why do you think we should move more towards a circular economy?
Well, that's kind of, we live on a finite planet. We can't just, so we live in a linear infrastructure right now, which means everything that we design is usually designed for the landfill. So it's a one-way street. We call it cradle to grave. So our trash, think of your trash as not just something that goes away. It's really like a design problem. So our trash is really a design problem. And when we're throwing things away, we're automatically saying that thing has no more value, right? So what we like to say at B0 is that we're trying to put more value back into the things that we use, back into our communities, back into the clothes we wear, the food we eat, and the stuff that we own and we have. So moving to what we call a zero waste economy, or what we like to say at B0 is having a circular mindset. So thinking about materials, thinking about the things that we consume and purchase in this circular way, just how nature works, right? So when you think of in the fall, when the leaves fall from the tree, they don't stay on the ground forever and ever, right? They eventually break down, the nutrients go back into the earth, they're reused. That's a circular, so we have to design in that circular format. That's what a zero waste economy is, not a linear one. So the reasons are obvious, right? Because eventually we're just gonna run out of stuff and space and resources, so, yeah.
So, Pete, how is handling of waste by the oil, natural gas, and mining industries affecting the everyday lives of Coloradans?
In the last 6 weeks, dramatically. There's a couple things going on with the oil and gas industry. I think kind of the marquee stuff that we've seen has been 2 separate tragedies up in the Northern Front Range, one in Firestone, right outside of Firestone is the second one. 2 people lost their lives because they were replacing a hot water heater in their home, and there was a flow line leading from a oil and gas well that it's an old well, and then it had been stopped for a while, but then it was restarted, and the line wasn't properly capped, and they didn't test to see if it was capped, so it was pouring natural gas just right up into next to the foundation of the home. And natural gas doesn't have that smell that we all know until it's been treated. And this wasn't treated because it's in a flow line. You don't treat natural gas in a flow line. So these guys had no idea, right? And so when you're replacing a hot water heater, that involves flame and spark as part of the repair, and that blew up the house and 2 people died and other people went to the hospital. And then was it last Thursday, I think, 2 or 3, I guess 3 workers were cleaning an oil and gas tank a couple miles. This is coincidental in terms of its 2 different incidences that weren't connected to the same well. But they were cleaning a tank a couple miles away from where the house blew up, and the tank blew up. And one of them died and 2 went to the hospital. So, I mean, that's not waste exactly. I mean, that's connected to what's happening with natural gas and oil and gas production here in Colorado. There are lots of issues connected to it, from worker safety to community safety to clean air, clean water, all the nuisance impacts of drilling from light, dust, noise, all that sort of stuff. And then not to mention, to go back to kind of the big picture question that I think we're all interested in, right, is if we're going to live on a sustainable planet, again, in all the ways that you're hearing we need to do and that we are doing, which is super exciting, I might add, we can't keep burning fossil fuels. We just can't do it. And so as we drill for oil and natural gas, you know, it's putting us in the wrong direction. Obviously, we need to move to, you know, much cleaner, entirely clean sources of energy like solar and wind.
So what legislation was proposed in 2017 to control waste produced by these industries, and what was the fate of this legislation?
Well, remember I mentioned those mixed chambers? Republicans run the state Senate, Democrats run the state House. So I'll jump to the end of the question, which was the fate was the bills all died. Because the oil and gas industry has enormous economic power, and they have and they use that to translate into political power, and they use it very effectively in the state Senate. So, an example, answer, excuse me, to your question would be: there's a certain distance where oil and gas wells can be from schools and hospitals and things where a lot of people are. I don't think it's yeah, that's right, and it's not far enough. But it is that, and what we wanted to say was, it's not just from the school building, but from the school property line. Because what do you do outside of the school within the property line? You play ball with your buddies, you run around the playground with your friends, et cetera, et cetera. So the fact that a fracking rig, could be closer to the playground or the ball field than it could to the physical structure, the buildings where kids are learning, didn't make any sense to us, and didn't make any sense to a lot of people. That's an example, and that bill passed the state House, but died in the state Senate. So that's an example of legislation connected to the oil and gas industry, and its fate was not positive from our perspective in the state legislature.
So Dr. Krishnan, I'm going to switch the subject here to community. And this might be a bit of a tough question, but has the Denver Botanic Gardens been contributing to the public and political debate over climate change in the more recent months?
Yes, we have done climate change research, so not in the political world, but of course we are a science-based organization, and you need to have proper scientific evidence to prove climate change. And one of the things that we do in our research department is we've been tracking phenology. Phenology is the different phases, life phases of a plant or animal, whatever. So what we have noticed is with climate change, a lot of the plants have been flowering earlier and earlier, a lot of the native plants. And so you can track that because we have herbarium, natural history collections. We have herbarium specimens that have been collected back in the 30s or 40s over time. And you can, typically when you collect herbarium specimen, you collect them in the flowering stage, and then you press the plant, and then you document where you collected it from. And so over time, we've been tracking that, and I think the research paper from our research crew that will come out soon, but they have tracked like at least 2 weeks, a lot of the alpine plants, at least a 2-week difference in, they've become earlier, 2 weeks earlier of flowering. And that has great implications because if a plant is flowering and they depend on certain insects, pollinators, to pollinate them, and if those insects also don't go through the same phenology time period, then the pollinators, they're not gonna produce seeds. So over time, it has implications for both the insect as well as the plant. So yes, we are doing climate change studies.
So what do you do with that information once you collect it? Do you send it to any, like the local governments, or what do you typically do with it?
Typically we'll publish a paper out of it, and I think that will become a great avenue for, so we are part of the, we have the rare plant conservation strategy, so we are part of the rare plant conservation group. And so there is that Colorado Rare Plant Conservation Strategy, which was created by a lot of the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, Denver Botanic Gardens is part of it, multiple organizations. And so developing a thing like that, it went through the legislation, I think, at one time, and was promoted with the legislators. So I think we could have some type of impact later on.
Great. And this is going to be the last question before I open it up to the Q&A, and it's going to be for Lindsay. What is voluntourism, and why is it beneficial to both visitors of the city of Denver and locals?
So voluntourism is, obviously if you there's a term where if you're traveling, you want to go to a location, make a positive difference. You might want to go work on a farm while you're in Nicaragua or something like that. What we've done here with Visit Denver and some key partners in the hospitality industry is we often have conventions or events that come in and they want to do something similar. And so they come to us and they say, we have 3,000 people that want to volunteer for half of a day. And we're like, oh, that sounds awesome. They think they're doing a great job, but then it's like, wow, there's some major logistics attached to that. And we don't just have, some program that needs 3,000 people on, May 25th or something. So we worked together to create a database of, I think it's probably about 20 or 25 different organizations throughout Denver. And it's on the Visit Denver website on their sustainability page. And we reached out to these organizations and said, if we had a group that wanted to come and do some, wanted to volunteer with you, what would that look like? What resources would you need? Can you do it for free? Does it, cost money basically? Because that means, manpower from your organization. And we also categorized it by, do you want to work with kids? Do you want to work with the homeless? Do you want to work in food shelters? So it's a pretty cool resource, and it's a great way to engage with what's happening in Denver and to allow these visitors that are coming that truly do want to make a positive impact. Gives them a way to do that without, and I guess with the easiest path possible.